Hello friends, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. As promised, I did say that I wanted to dive a little bit deeper on Steven Gerrard, sounds awful, and Aston Villa more importantly. And that's what we're going to do in this video. How has Steven Gerrard transformed this Aston Villa side? Now that sounds a bit hyperbolic, it's a bit early, but I'm going to go early with this one because I really think that Aston Villa are going to have a very, very strong end to the season with the games they've got to play coming up, but also what I've seen so far. Before we dive into this, if you do enjoy some of the more tactical aspects of the game, then make sure you check out the Fallout. Most Mondays I put that out. There was one out yesterday talking about Everton and how they are collapsing towards relegation, and we spoke about Man United, Liverpool, all of the teams that were sort of noteworthy over the weekend. So make sure you go check out that video. And of course, if you enjoy the video, please do consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the like button as well. So let's have a look at the record so far. Some people would suggest that it's not that impressive. 5 games won, 4 games lost, 1 game drawn out of the 10 so far. But when you look at the defeats are to Man City, a 2-1 defeat, losing to Liverpool 1-0, losing to Chelsea 3-1, and then a disappointing result against Brentford. But barring that Brentford game, the other 3 are really, really tough games. And I think what I've been impressed with so far is the sort of the change in mentality. I was one that was disappointed that Dean Smith lost his job because I believe that he's a good coach, but there were signs of staleness there. They had lost their previous 5 games, and it's one of those where, in hindsight, I was probably wrong. Because ultimately, if you can get someone who you truly believe is better than what you have, then, you know, like transfers themselves, it's maybe something that you should just do for the improvement of the side. And be it in the transfer market with the signings of Luca Digne and Coutinho, they've been really impressive there, and that's probably down to Steven Gerrard. But also, the implementation of this 4-3-3 system is something that feels quite new to the Premier League. It's something that Gerrard did at Rangers, but all those trademarks that we saw at Rangers are there to be seen when it comes to this Aston Villa side. And with that, you would expect the mentality to change of the team, the expectations of the team to change, and the results to change as well. So let's talk about problems under Dean Smith. The problems were the fact that Jack Grealish was such a talent that Dean Smith understandably built a team around him. As the club grew and spent correctly, or certainly efficiently in terms of the quality of the players coming through, the squad changed, and of course Jack Grealish left as well, and you were left with a lot of players that came through to kind of fill up the gap and the output that Jack Grealish put forward. But Dean Smith seemed to struggle to find the answers in terms of how to fit them all in. He tried a 4-2-3-1, he tried a 3-4-1-2, both looked flimsy. Defensively, they looked really bad. In the last 5 games of Dean Smith's era, the aggregate score was 13-6. He was repeatedly switching the centre-back pairings and repeatedly changing the front 3 or 4 to try and accommodate all the new signings. So what did Gerrard come in and do to fix this? Well, he came in with a very clear idea of how he wanted to play with Rangers. We wondered if he would continue with that. He has continued with that 4-3-3. But more so, and this is the main reason, especially after the Everton game, I was like, I want to do a bigger video on this guy, is that the kind of magic that you want from a manager, especially one that's had such a glittering career as Steven Gerrard, is that you want to see the player in the team. And I'm seeing the player in the team. And it was personified in, firstly, maybe the coming back from 2-0 down against Manchester United, playing the same way, making attacking changes and seeing those changes. But the Everton game as well, he relished it. And you saw that with the face that he pulled during or after the game. I can't remember exactly where it was. But he knew that the atmosphere was going to be pretty outrageous. And he knew Everton were going to be up for it. He knew the team were going to be up for it. He knew the crowd were going to be up for it. But these sort of mentality moments that he accrues because of the expectation that he assigns to his team, that he has lived his life by, kind of by osmosis, you start to see it in the team themselves. They feel that confidence to go and be bastards, basically. And you saw that in the first half of that game against Everton. Instead of kind of trying to keep the ball and be careful, they clattered into Everton a couple of times. And yes, the crowd were excited by that, but they almost had to kind of check themselves because they were like, well, hang on a minute. They're not sort of backing down to our will or excitement. They're kind of exerting their will to them and sticking their chest out and going face to face with them. I thought, although such a small thing, it was a really, really big thing that Gerrard did there, and a very clear message that he put towards his team before they went out at Goodison Park. Aston Villa then showed the grit and mettle to get through the second half, that 45 minutes after taking the lead, which again, it's just all these little moments. I'm starting to see it, and I'm looking at these players, that midfield, and we often do this. There's sort of like an upscale and downscale the stock of players depending on how it's all going. And I'm looking at the squad right now, and including the additions, I'm just pretty excited by it, I've got to be honest. So let's talk tactics, especially from this game, because as I say, and I'll show you at the end of this video, it's a nice little run of games that Aston Villa have got coming up, and they could really make a push for those European spots if they can catch fire, which they could do. 4-3-3, as we've said. When you have a look at the lineup there, do you swap Ollie Watkins for Danny Ings? Aside from that, this is probably the best 11 that Gerrard can put forward, and the 11 that he wants to put forward. If we then look at the average positions, that will look like a bit of a mess if you don't understand what Gerrard's getting at. However, this is exactly what he wants to see from his team. So why do those bunched up average positions make sense? Here's why. Gerrard's setup is to have three forwards who play together, utilise their technical ability, and play short, incisive passes to one another. He also likes a striker in the middle, so that striker in the middle is Ollie Watkins. And then, of course, you've got Coutinho and Buendia there. So often we talk about going round, over, or through. What's trying to happen here, especially against the game against Everton, where Everton had two centre midfielders in Gomez and Doucouré, was this idea that we can go through here. I think we can go through. And there'll be games where they'll need to go round, and that will be the use of Luca Dean and Matty Cash, of course. But in this game in particular, the narrow strikers, or front three, of that 4-3-3, they want to utilise their speed of thought more so than their pace. At the same time, they do want that striker like Ollie Watkins to be a player that doesn't just come short for the ball, is capable of coming short for the ball, but isn't only coming short for the ball. You want someone who's willing, as you can see him here, to make those runs in behind as well, to create space for these other inside forwards. And you can see from these two screenshots, this first one here, initially getting the ball to Coutinho, cutting out the likes of, well, a lot of players here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players out of the game, and then you're on a 3v2 with also, your left back struggling as well. If we then move that on to the second clip, you can see, or the second screenshot, you can see they're really, really starting to struggle, and chances were created that way. So with that narrow front three, you would then start to ask the question, oh, okay, where's the width? Because you need to utilise as much of the pitch as possible. So how does Gerrard kind of get around that? Does he play a back three? No, he sticks with the 4, but he utilises the midfielders in a way that not many teams do, really, having two Mazzalas, really, in Ramsey and McGinn. And that offers so many different things. In terms of passing lanes, it provides a lot more as well, but it allows the fullbacks to bomb on. Luca Dean and Matty Cash can bomb on. It also creates options and confusion for the midfield of opposition, because if you go and press the likes of McGinn and Ramsey, who start in these wider areas, it's a general coaching point that you don't really want to pick the ball up in the centre spot, because if you pick it up there, there's less angles and less routes to get the ball to your forwards. But allowing McGinn and Ramsey, two players who can drive with the ball at times, but playing them that little bit wider, it again create space. First of all, when they get the ball, it gives the fullbacks that license to bomb on, but it also gives the likes of Konsa and Mings a ball straight into Buendia, or a ball into Douglas Luiz, or a ball to their fullback if it's not on, or again another option to McGinn. Same goes, of course, for Mings on this other side as well. And just generally the spacing is so important here. But if you're able to get it to these players who, again, if you watch Ramsey play, what I love about him is the fact that he loves to get on the ball on the half turn, and he's very fluent doing it both ways. McGinn, we know he can drive with the ball and be that energy for the team as well. So you kind of create a width by freezing the opposition at times, because they don't truly know where to go themselves. And it offers so many options. You then, if you are able to bypass the midfield and get the ball straight to Coutinho, that's perfect as well, because you're getting it to that front three as quickly as possible. And once that front three have the ball, They're close to each other. They've got the guile, the quick feet, the speed of mind to play to each other, to beat a man when they're surrounded. Both of these players maybe don't have that pace out wide to just beat players one-on-one. So it's nicer to have them in these half spaces where they can also either lay it off and work up the pitch or play Watkins in. So of course it's early days, but there are a lot of little elements here that I'm seeing that I just think are really exciting for Aston Villa fans and, you know, neutrals, I guess, as well. Gerrard's got a very clear sense of how he wants to play, which I think's great. I think he and his coaching team are very, very strong as well, have a great mix of kind of modern ideas, positive ideas that align with Gerrard, but also allowing him to have that distance as a manager as well, to retain that gravitas. The experience of Gary McAllister as well are all really useful elements. And in terms of McAllister and Gerrard as people who can develop midfielders, it feels like there's not many better out there. If you think of Rangers and what he's done for Glenn Kamara, Joe Aribo as well, as players that Joe Aribo, for example, going from Charlton to Rangers and how far he developed. Glenn Kamara, a great example as well. Joe Aribo has been absolutely killing it for Nigeria, been more impressive than Wilfred Ndidi recently in terms of that double pivot. And so for Aston Villa, you've got Jacob Ramsey, you've got John McGinn, who I think people have always really enjoyed, but can he go to that next level? He's got all those ingredients that Gerrard probably likes in a player. You know, the desire to get the ball and be that Roy of the Rovers player who drives and scores goals. McGinn's done that for Scotland. Jacob Ramsey is 20 years old, and you're seeing him growing game in, game out. And these are all exciting elements for Aston Villa. And when we look at the games that they've got coming up, there's absolutely no reason why they can't go on a really, really hot streak here. Leeds United, Newcastle, Watford, Brighton, Southampton. And then by that point, they might see themselves very differently. But West Ham, of course, always a tough game away from home. Arsenal, Watford. It gets tougher after that. But if they can get themselves into this, moment of confidence, then the end of the season isn't one of those where they're just sort of, waiting to get on the beach. It's one where they're excited and pushing for European places. Look, there has to be counterpoints with all of this as well. That needs to be noted. And a couple of questions that will remain for the foreseeable are, first of all, plan B. Is there a plan B in terms of the tactical formation? Does there need to be one? I think there's been different ways that at Rangers, Gerrard's set up to, again, go around, go through, go over. And these are all options in terms of the roles of these players. But the formation of these players, there might not be a plan B. I think that happened for a couple of games at Rangers where he went from a 4-3-3 to a 4-2-3-1, but he didn't feel it had the same kind of, attacking verve. It wasn't as forthright as the 4-3-3 that he likes so much. But again, is that much of a negative to have players that are going to be playing in similar positions? We've seen how teams have struggled with too much chopping and changing. And secondly, this idea that, look, this 4-3-3, of course, it's not completely new. It's just a different variation on it, but it does feel like it's something quite unique. So it might be one where they can capitalise on it this season, but next season, or once a blueprint is kind of put forward by an opposition side that really stops them and curtails this 4-3-3, you might have a blueprint to stop them, and there needs to be new ideas and new ways of playing. But for now, I think it's one to capitalise on. I wanted to go early on it, and I wanted to just dive a little bit deeper on the formation and setup of Gerrard at Aston Villa, because I've been pretty impressed, and the mentality is often the most important part of it all. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see how they get on. Could completely blow up in my face. I remember doing a video on Villa last year around this time, and I think they then fell off a cliff. So apologies if that happens again. But I think it's fascinating stuff. And Gerrard as a manager is probably everything you really want in terms of being kind of stern at times, but kind of exciting with it as well, because he's so positive and the guy's a winner. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Massively, massively helps. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Really importantly, if you are already a subscriber, make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss a video as soon as we go live. Notification gang, 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 gang. See you next time. I just said gang, didn't I?